Yo, what's going on guys, and welcome back to another video. Today as a title and thumbnail to death, we're going to be doing part 3 on what if Deku was Gojo. Now, hear me out, I know I haven't been here in a long time. Now, I can explain why you guys haven't heard my voice, unless you guys been watching my old videos, which I thank you for that. And speaking on the topic of the channel, we almost have 400 subscribers and we hit it without me posting anything for a month. So I'm very grateful and I'm glad on how strong our community is and how fast it's growing. Now let me get to my explanation. Now, as some of you might already know if you're still in school like I am, my school year just came down to an end and I have finals, so I had to really focus on studying and getting a good grade on it so I can pass the year overall. So I had to stop doing what is and stop doing YouTube in general so I can focus on finals. Thank you for Kosho for making this thumbnail. But after further ado, cue the intro.
Been 38 up on my body, put him in the sky, you don't even win it. Send that nigga to the dead for thinking that nigga's pretending. I got 52 shots in this Glock with an infrared up on it, I been feel that off. Just to be on the top, yellow tape on it.
So where we left off the last part was with Deku going to the Quirk doctor as he was about to get his quirk evaluated by Dr. Ujiko and some of the other people that are in the quirk testing facility, as Dr. Ujiko was explaining the quirk to the fellow doctors. And that's where we're gonna get right back into it. So as we see, the doctors all surround Deku and say, "Interesting, so you seem to have a good quirk. Let's bring out some test objects to see how this can be used." As he says, "What? I don't really know how to properly use my quirk. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing here? To try to be teaching me how to use my quirk, and then we're going to be testing it?" As the doctors say, "Well, that's a common misconception that people think that we teach you how to use your quirk. That's for you to do. That's not really our problem," says one of the doctors in a black lab coat. As he says, "Well, then why am I here? Well, that's just to get your quirk evaluated and put down in the quirk books. That's pretty much all we have to do. Then why do you have this big room?" "Well, some people's quirk come in all different types of sizes, shapes, and all different powers, so for better tests, we have to have a very huge room so that can fit to everyone's quirks." As he says, "Well, okay." As he says, "Alright, so do you remember what you did to that kid?" says Dr. Ujiko to Deku. As Deku says, "Well, I think I did." As Deku tries to remember all the events that happened on the day of the fight and the day that he awakened his quirk, as he says, "Oh, think, Gojo." As he says, "Oh yeah, I remember." As he then puts his hands into the Gojo fashion, as he and all the other doctors get transported into Deku's infinite domain, as they all start to feel the effects of all the knowledge that's being transferred into their brain, kind of frying it, but not up to the level of what he did when he first unlocked his quirk, since he has a little bit more control now. So it only gave them a mild headache, which is, I don't know if Gojo in the original can control how much their minds get affected by his infinite domain, but I'm just gonna say for this story that he can. So he says, "Okay, now please close it," as they begin to hold their heads. As he says, "Okay, wait, I don't know how to close it." As he says, "Well, maybe try to do the same hand gestures that you did to open it, and that might work for closing it." As he says, "Oh, good idea." So he put back into his hands the same way that he did to enter into his domain expansion, as he then and all of the other doctors then exited and entered back into the real world. As he said, "Interesting. Make sure you jot this down, as well as the name that we're thinking of." So they said, "Oh yeah, what are we thinking of calling this?" For the notes, of course. As they said, "Well, it seems to go on forever, and it doesn't really seem to have any stops, and it seems like his own personal domain. So I guess we can call it an infinite domain. As Gojo said, infinite domain. I kind of like the sound to that. As he says, alright, next up, we're going to be doing the next part of the test. As he says, okay, what's the next part of this test? We're going to be seeing the same way that you're seeing, so we can understand what you're talking about. How you say you can see apparently numbers as well as some figures that look like, as you say, thermal visioned versions of bodies. Since you can't really see us, but you can see our heat our heat waves that form into the shape of the body. As he says, yeah, that would describe how I see you. As they said, okay, put on these goggles. As he says, what are the goggles for? It hooks up to the computer and we can see whatever you see. As he says, okay, I guess so. As he then put on the goggles as he opens his eyes, since the whole time so far he has his eyes closed, since he can see normally when his eyes are closed. So he says, alright, first off, open your eyes. As, like I said, he opened his eyes. As the doctors start to say, oh, so he really is telling us the truth. This really is how he sees. Very interesting. As they show on a monitor a whole bunch of ones and zeros, as well as different scales and different numbers that each person has over their head. As they say, I wonder what these numbers mean. As some people have greater numbers and some people have lower numbers, as well as some people's body frames are as clear as others. As they're saying, maybe it's depending on like their powers or their quirks. As they said, that might be the only rational thing that we can do, but for now we don't really know what he's seeing. As Dr. Ujiko says, okay, close your eyes now. As Deku says, okay, as he closes his eyes, and then he can see normally. He can see the people, he can see the whole room, he can see everything like a normal person would see with his eyes open, except he can see it when he closes his eyes. As they said, this is very interesting. Make sure you make this a bolded point in the document. As one of the fellow doctors says, okay, Dr. Ujiko. As he says, well, I guess this is all we have to test for you. We'll write down some notes and we'll come back and talk to you and your mom and your dad a little bit, like in 15 minutes. As he says, well, okay, thank you. As he goes back to his parents, as they said, so what did they say? As he says, well, pretty much everything I said was confirmed, and they said that they're going to be back in a few minutes to tell you the results of the test. As they said, okay. So we now have like a 15-minute time skip. On what they were doing was just, they were all sitting on their phone just watching YouTube and stuff to bypass the 15-minute time. So as Dr. Ujiko comes out with the fellow doctors, as he has his computer, as that was what he was using to type all of his notes for the Midoriyas. As he says, well, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Midoriya, so your son, Gojo, has the power. At least we don't know if this is sure for now. A little later he might unlock more of his powers, but we can never be too sure if this is his definite quirk. But for right now, we don't really know what to call it. It seems that he has different parts of his quirk, and on one side he has the ability to create a pocket dimension, which we called his infinite domain. As when we were in there, it seemed like it was everlasting and it could go on for hundreds and maybe even thousands of meters. So because of that, we called it infinite, and since it's his and he seems to be able to control what he does inside of it, as instantly when we entered, we had a flash of things enter into our heads, as it caused us to have a headache. And since we see that, it seems that he's the only one that wasn't affected by this, and since he can create it, we call it his domain. Now this is the second facet of his quirk, in which we have this as Dr. Ujiko pulls out a blindfold out of his pocket for Gojo. Now, as we were running the test on what he was talking about with his eyes, we can see that when he opens up his eyes, he sees totally different than any human being should. He sees a thermal version of humans, so we can't really see anyone's face, but he can see their body. He can see like a body outline with heat signatures coming off of them, as well as seeing certain numbers that pop up above each person's head. As we come to the conclusion that this might be like how strong a person's quirk might be, because I am quirkless and there was zeros over my head, but Dr. May, who has a fire quirk, had 100 over her head. So we're coming to the conclusion that it might be how strong the quirk is, and if they don't have a quirk at all, they'll have zeros. So that's just our conclusion so far. As she says, wow, that's interesting, but what's the blindfold for? So that's the next part. So like I said, he sees totally different than any person should. But when his eyes are closed, he could see like a normal human being, except his vision seems to be better than ours. Maybe this is just another part of his quirk, and maybe he has a part of a vision quirk that when his eyes are closed, it allows him to see. It allows him to heighten his seeing. But we still are very confused so far. But yeah, so thank you for bringing him to this hospital. If you have any other family members that will be developing a quirk here, please let them know about this hospital instead of sending them to our competitors. As he says, as the Midoriya says, okay, will do. Alright, y'all have a good day. As they exit the office, as all the doctors separate, as Dr. Ujiko says, very, very interesting. This will definitely be a good quirk for Master, all for one. As we now have a 11-year time skip to when Deku is now in the final years of middle school. Now, during these years, the family has begun to become wary and don't think that Inko and Hayashi are the best parents to develop and maximize the potential that Gojo has. As some of you in the comments may be asking the same question that teachers and the family's been asking them for years. Why hasn't you allowed Gojo to skip grades? He's a lot more advanced and a lot smarter than kids these days, and just him interacting with people that are beneath him are a waste of his potential. As the Midoriya's been saying, well, Inko and Hayashi has been responding to every single one of them. Well, we are well aware that our child is a prodigy, our child is a genius. Now, just because we refuse to building up in the ranks and let him skip grades like every single person in this family and all of his teachers would want us to do, that doesn't mean that we're not proud of our child, which we very much are. We're proud that he has been gifted to be an amazing hero, and possibly one day, maybe even the number one if he wants to. But for now, he's a child, and we want him to have as much as a normal life that a person like him can have. But as you guys been telling us, and you guys been feeding this nonsense into his head that he is above everyone, and that he should only be around people that can benefit him, and everyone that is lower than him is just a dust and a piece of speck that will never help him and that he must eradicate. Now, this is what you've been feeding our child for the last 15 years of his life. Ever since he be able to talk, you guys been telling him how much of a prodigy he is, and you ruined our baby boy. This is why we didn't want him to skip a grade. This is why we just wanted him to be normal. But You guys had what you want. You guys want him who only cares about the strong and feels that the strong must always be over the weak, and the weak can just be eradicated. This is nothing more of a piece of dust that is on his shirt that needs to be wiped off daily. And congratulations for that. But he is still a child, and therefore he's under our house and under our rules. Until he becomes a pro hero, he'll be doing what we want because we know best for our child. No matter if he likes it, no matter if y'all like it, we don't care. He's still our child in the end. As that's where they would always close off of that conversation. But like I said, we are now at the end of Deku's middle school, as we now see the events that happened in the anime. As the teacher says, well, we don't need any of these because we already know what all y'all want to be when you guys grow up. Heroes. As the whole class starts using their quirk. It's set for 2 people, Katsuki Bakugo and Gojo Midoriya. Full class celebration was cut off with Bakugo as he slams his hands on his desk as he says, all y'all extras be quiet. The only people who are gonna be heroes here is me and Gojo. All of you guys are just extras and will never be more than the sidekick. As some of the class says, wow, someone sees butt hurt today. As another one said, shut up. You can't even talk because Gojo's always been better than you in every single thing. And why are you even talking for him? The way that it appears, he doesn't even like you like that, and he sees you like you see us. So, I don't think an extra to Gojo should be talking. As the Bakugo starts fuming, as he begins to create explosions in his hand, as the teacher says, now, settle down, class, settle down. But it's been my pleasure to be teaching you guys for this school year, and hopefully all of you guys end up having great careers, and you guys end up doing whatever you guys want to do, and hopefully some of you guys become heroes. And on the topic of heroes, we have 2 of our very own students attempting to go on UA. Well, the first one we all know is Gojo, and he's a surefire shot for UA. And the second one is Katsuki Bakugo, as they says, yeah, Gojo is definitely gonna get in, but we don't know too much about Bakugo, because he may have a cool quirk, but it's nothing like Gojo's, so therefore he's an extra just like us. As Bakugo starts screaming, as he begins to steam profusely, as his quirk begins to activate, as explosions start to crackle in the palms of his hands, as he says, you want to say that to my face, you extra? As Gojo then opens his eyes, as the whole class feels an immense amount of pressure, as Gojo says, can you all just be quiet, all of you insolent fools? Can I just take a nap in peace without you losers interrupting me? As the whole class says, sorry Gojo, we apologize for interrupting your nap. But guys, I'm going to be ending this video right here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and again, I am very sorry for not posting in a while. I had to finish school, but now since we're on summer vacation, I can post, at least try to go back to my old schedule of 2 vids a week. I can really try my best of getting back into the groove, and I'm trying to really enjoy making these what ifs. I had so many ideas when I was on my break. Now I can really act on them. I had an idea on what if Deku was Sabito from Demon Slayer, and for my 400 sub special, I promised one of my viewers that I would do what if Deku had the Opi Opi no Mi from One Piece, Law's ability, really OP, and these series can be really good, and I have a lot of ideas, and I wrote a lot of them down, so videos will be trying to slowly starting to get back into the group, posting a lot of videos again. But yeah, thank you again for Kosho for making this for making this thumbnail for me. If you want a thumbnail from Gojo, make sure, number one, join the Discord because he's in the Discord. And number two, I'll probably leave either his YouTube or his Discord in the description of this video. But yeah, after further ado, it's Zero, and I'm out.